The one you love the most becomes the reason for your death. The one you trust with all your heart snatches away your life and turns you into a spirit. And now, as a spirit, I have returned to take my revenge. My name is Leo, and I am 30 years old. Life until recently had been simple, almost painfully ordinary. I worked at a car showroom in the city, selling vehicles to eager customers and spending my evenings alone in my modest apartment. My routine never changed. Wake up, go to work, return home, eat something simple, and sleep. Day after day, it was the same pattern, a loop that seemed endless. I never complained though. Simplicity brought peace, and peace kept me away from complications. I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, and I had no bad habits. My life felt steady, even though it lacked excitement. Sometimes, however, I secretly wished something would happen to break the monotony. Something that could make me feel alive again. The sun was bright, and I was busy checking paperwork when a young woman walked in. She wanted to have her car repaired. Her name was Zara. She was 25, graceful, and full of charm. The moment our eyes met, I felt something stir. Zara stood before me with an elegance that seemed almost unreal. Her car trouble was ordinary, but her presence was not. I couldn't stop staring. Every gesture of hers felt magnetic. She tucked her hair behind her ear while explaining the issue with her car, and I barely heard her words. My heart was beating faster than ever before. When our eyes met again, she smiled politely. That single smile felt like sunlight piercing through the dull clouds of my routine life. For the first time in years, my ordinary world suddenly had color. I quickly arranged for her car repair and tried to prolong our conversation. To my relief, she didn't seem in a hurry to leave. We spoke casually at first about cars, about work, about little things. But the comfort we found in each other's presence was undeniable. Hours slipped by unnoticed. By the time she left, I already knew one thing with certainty. I was in love with her. Later that week, fate gave me another chance. We met again, this time at a coffee shop. Unlike the showroom, here she was relaxed, laughing softly, her cheeks turning red each time I teased her. Something deep was growing between us. Inside me. Something powerful, something dangerous. Our meetings soon became frequent, and every time I saw Zara, I felt more alive. Coffee shops, evening walks, small dinners, it didn't matter where we met. What mattered was the warmth in her eyes, the way her laughter echoed in my heart, and how time simply disappeared when we were together. Zara had a softness in her that made me want to protect her forever. She blushed every time I held her hand across the table, and that innocence only drew me closer. I was no longer the quiet man, living a dull life. I was a man who had found love. Slowly, our affection grew stronger. Weeks turned into months, and before long, I knew I could not imagine life without her. One evening, under the dim lights of a small cafe, I held her hand tightly and asked her the question my heart had been carrying for weeks. Zara, will you marry me? Her eyes widened in surprise, then softened with tears. She nodded, whispering, yes. That single word changed my entire life. Soon, we were married. 2 years of our marriage passed like a beautiful dream, filled with laughter, love, and the kind of happiness I once thought was impossible. Marriage with Zara felt like stepping into a new world. Our little home became the center of joy, filled with warmth, laughter, and endless conversations. I often woke up just to watch her sleeping peacefully beside me, her face glowing in the morning light. It felt like a blessing I didn't deserve. She would prepare breakfast while humming her favorite tunes, and I would leave for the showroom each day with a smile on my face. Life felt complete. Zara was not just my wife, she was my best friend, my partner, my reason to live. 2 years passed in what felt like a blink. Every festival, every small celebration, every ordinary evening turned into a memory worth cherishing. My colleagues noticed the glow in my eyes, and often joked that I was the happiest man alive. They weren't wrong, but life has a cruel way of testing happiness. Just when everything seems perfect, darkness finds its way in. For me, that darkness arrived quietly, disguised as friendship. I had a friend who occasionally drank alcohol. He often teased me for being too simple, too disciplined. I never cared until one evening, when he pushed me harder than ever before to join him. That evening, my friend placed a glass in front of me. Just one drink, he insisted with a sly smile. I resisted at first, shaking my head, reminding him I had no such habits. But he laughed, saying, "Come on, Leo. One drink won't ruin your life. Don't be so boring." I don't know what came over me. Maybe it was his persistence, or maybe it was a hidden curiosity I never admitted. Against my better judgment, I lifted the glass and took a sip. The burning taste spread through my throat, and soon, one sip turned into several. By the time I left, the world around me spun uncontrollably. My steps were unsteady, and my head felt heavy. Somehow, I stumbled my way home. Zara rushed to me the moment she saw my condition. Her delicate hands gripped my arm tightly as she led me inside. "Leo, what happened?" she asked, her voice trembling with worry. But I couldn't answer. My words were slurred, my thoughts clouded. She laid me gently on the bed, covered me with a blanket, and sat beside me until I drifted into unconsciousness. That night marked the beginning of a storm neither of us could foresee. Morning light crept into the room as I slowly opened my eyes. My head throbbed, and my mouth felt dry. When I rubbed my eyes, Zara was already standing beside me, her expression heavy with disappointment. "You came home drunk last night," she said firmly. Her voice was not loud, but every word struck me harder than a scream. "I cannot live with a man who drinks." I sat up quickly, guilt burning in my chest. "Zara, it was a mistake. I swear it won't happen again. Please, forget it now. Give me a hug." Her eyes softened slightly, though the worry remained. She leaned forward and hugged me. I clung to her, silently promising myself to never let this happen again. Afterwards, she quietly prepared breakfast, placing the plate in front of me without another word. I forced a smile, thanked her, and left for work, trying to convince myself the matter was over. But the truth is, a seed had already been planted. A small crack had formed in the perfect life we shared. Zara's trust had been shaken, and I could feel the invisible distance between us. Even as I walked out the door that morning. All day at the showroom, Zara's words echoed in my mind. "I cannot live with a man who drinks." I told myself again and again that I would never repeat that mistake. Yet, when evening came, temptation found me once more. My friend called out to me as I was leaving work. "One drink, Leo. Just one. Don't be so dramatic." I hesitated, but somehow the memory of last night faded beneath his laughter. I convinced myself it wasn't such a big deal. By the time I returned home, my steps were unsteady again. The moment Zara saw me, her face changed. Fury replaced the gentle worry she had shown before. "Enough," she shouted, her voice trembling with anger. "I will not listen to your excuses anymore. From now on, take care of yourself, because I won't." I lowered my head, ashamed, but I didn't argue. Without a word, I walked past her and collapsed onto the bed. Sleep came quickly, heavy and merciless. But as I slept, Zara lay awake, her mind restless. Her heart whispered thoughts she had never allowed before. "I can't live with a drunkard. He will destroy my life. I have to make a decision." The next morning was different. Zara didn't rise with me, as she usually did. She lay in bed, eyes closed, refusing to move. I waited for her to say something, but silence filled the room like a heavy fog. I dressed quietly, brewed my own coffee, and prepared breakfast without her help. For the first time in our marriage, she didn't stir, didn't ask where I was going, didn't even glance in my direction. That as I stepped out of the house, I felt a strange chill, as though the warmth of our love had suddenly been extinguished. I tried to convince myself she just needed time, but deep down, I feared something inside her had changed forever. At the showroom, I worked mechanically, yet my thoughts were chained to her silence. Was she still angry? Was our marriage breaking apart over something so foolish? What I didn't know was that while I busied myself with cars and customers, Zara was making her own choices once that would shatter my world. She dialed a number on her phone, her hands trembling slightly. On the other end, her cousin Peter answered. With a soft, deliberate voice, she invited him over. Later that afternoon, while I was buried in showroom work, Zara welcomed Peter into our home. He was her cousin, someone I had always trusted without question. Zara served him coffee, her hands steady, though her heart raced. They sat together, in the living room, the air heavy with unspoken tension. At first, their conversation was casual family matters, old memories, simple laughter. But slowly, the tone shifted. Their laughter lingered too long, their words grew softer, and the distance between them on the couch began to fade. Peter's eyes lingered on Zara, in ways they shouldn't have. She noticed but didn't push him away. Instead, she found comfort in the attention, comfort she no longer sought from me. The betrayal was already taking root, though I was still miles away. Completely unaware, as the evening shadows grew longer, Peter leaned closer. Zara's heart raced, yet she didn't resist. Soon, words gave way to silence, and silence turned into something darker. By nightfall, the cousin I trusted, and the woman I loved, had crossed a line that could never be undone. In that moment, while I still dreamed of mending my marriage, my world was already crumbling behind my back. That evening, I returned home later than usual. The sun had already set, leaving the sky bruised with shades of orange and purple. As I approached the gate, something felt strange. The main door was wide open. Zara never left it like that. Carrying my bag, I stepped inside. The house was unnervingly quiet, except for the faint sound of laughter echoing from the bedroom. My heart skipped a beat. I pushed the door open and froze. The sight before me crushed every breath in my lungs. Zara, the woman I loved, the one I had built my world around, was lying on the bed. With Peter, my bag slipped from my hand, hitting the floor with a dull thud. The sound jolted them awake. Zara gasped, her face pale as if she had seen a ghost. Peter jumped to his feet, his eyes wide with panic. Tears streamed down my face. My voice failed me. Every memory of our love, our vows, our promises, burned away in that single moment. But Peter's panic quickly turned to rage. His eyes darkened, and in a flash, he grabbed an iron rod from the corner of the room, charging at me with murderous intent. Peter lunged forward, the iron rod raised high. Instinct took over, and I stumbled backward, my hand reaching for anything to defend myself. My fingers closed around a thick wooden stick, leaning near the wall. With a furious cry, he swung the rod at me. The metal whistled through the air, missing my head by inches as I ducked. I countered with a desperate swing of my own, the stick crashing against his arm. He roared in pain but didn't stop. The room filled with chaos, shouts, the crash of furniture, the sound of metal and wood colliding. Zara stood frozen at first, fear flashing in her eyes. But as we fought, I noticed something chilling. She wasn't trying to stop us. Instead, she watched, her expression unreadable, as if calculating something far more sinister. Peter slammed the rod against my shoulder, sending a wave of pain through my body. I struck back, hitting his ribs hard enough to make him stumble. Both of us were bruised, bleeding, desperate to overpower the other. For a moment, I thought I had the upper hand. But then, Zara's hand slipped into the drawer beside the bed. Her eyes locked on me with cold determination. Peter groaned on the floor, clutching his ribs. I stood over him, chest heaving, gripping the wooden stick tightly. For a brief second, I thought I had survived this madness. But then I saw her. Zara stood beside the bed, her trembling hand pulling something from the drawer. My eyes widened as the dull metallic shine caught the light. A pistol. Zara, what are you doing? My voice cracked, heavy with disbelief. Her face was pale, but her eyes were cold, unfamiliar, cruel. I'm ending this, she whispered. Before I could react, she raised a gun and aimed it directly at my forehead. My heart pounded, my grip on the stick weakening. Zara, no, please, it's me. For a split second, I searched her face for any trace of love, of hesitation, of the woman I had once known. But there was nothing. The trigger clicked. A deafening shot ripped through the room. The wooden stick slipped from my fingers as searing pain exploded in my skull. My knees buckled, and I collapsed, staring at Zara through blurred eyes. She didn't flinch. Darkness swallowed me whole. The world faded into silence. My final breath left my lips, and my body crumpled lifelessly onto the cold floor. Zara stood frozen, the pistol still in her hand, smoke curling upward from the barrel. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, but her eyes betrayed no remorse, only relief. Peter staggered to his feet, still clutching his side. For a moment, he looked at her in shock. Then slowly, a smile crept across his face. It's done, he whispered. Together, they dragged my body across the room. The sound of my lifeless form scraping against the floor echoing through the house. They opened the front door, stepping into the night, where the air was thick with silence. The pond outside shimmered faintly under the moonlight. Without hesitation, they heaved me into the dark water. My body sank slowly, swallowed by the depths, until the ripples faded and the pond grew still again. Zara leaned against Peter, her breathing shaky. But soon, their fear gave way to twisted joy. They kissed under the pale moon, believing their sins were buried with me. They returned inside, laughing quietly, thinking they had erased me from their lives forever. But they were wrong. The pond swallowed my body, but it did not silence me. Death was supposed to bring peace, yet peace never came. Instead, I drifted in a void of agony, my last memories burning, like fire in my soul. Zara's betrayal, Peter's rage, the cold barrel of the gun. Something inside me refused to let go. My love, my trust, my life had been stolen, and the injustice festered like poison. Slowly, my spirit clawed its way back, tethered not to heaven or hell, but to the very place where my blood had been spilled. That night, Zara and Peter lay in bed together. Their laughter echoed in the same room, where my life had ended. To them, it was over. But the house had already changed. The windows rattled without wind. The air grew heavy, suffocating. The light bulb above flickered, casting long, shifting shadows across the walls. Zara stirred in her sleep, sensing something was wrong. Peter opened his eyes, frowning at the strange noises. Then, the door slammed shut on its own. The air turned, icy hot, and in the corner of the room, a figure began to take shape. My ghostly form, dripping blood from hollow eyes, staring at them with silent fury. Peter sat up abruptly, his eyes widening at the sight of me. "Zara, do you see that?" His voice cracked, trembling with fear. Zara turned toward the corner, and the color drained from her face. Her lips quivered, and she clutched Peter's arm tightly. No, this can't be real," she whispered. I stood there, my form translucent, yet vivid enough to freeze their blood. My eyes dripped with crimson, the same blood that had poured when Zara pulled the trigger. My voice echoed through the room, layered and hollow, not human anymore. "You killed me." Peter leapt off the bed, grabbing the pistol from the drawer, his hands shaking. "Stay back," he shouted, pointing the weapon at me. But I only laughed, a deep, hollow laugh that made the walls tremble. The gunshot that had ended my life no longer had power over me. The bulb above shattered, plunging the room into darkness. Only the pale moonlight seeping through the curtains lit my face. "You thought the pond could hide your crime," I whispered, stepping closer. "You thought death would silence me," Zara screamed, burying her face in her hands. Peter's legs shook as he stepped backward, his voice breaking. What are you?" Peter's question lingered in the air, trembling like a fragile thread. I stepped closer, my shadow stretching unnaturally across the floor. My voice thundered, shaking the room. "I am what you made me." Zara shrieked and grabbed the bedsheet, hiding her face as though cloth could protect her from the truth. Peter swung the pistol, firing blindly into the air. The bullets tore through the room, but I remained untouched, my form flickering like smoke. Every time the gun cracked, my laughter grew louder, echoing through the walls, through their bones, rattling their very souls. The cupboard doors slammed open on their own. Chairs toppled. The mirror across the wall cracked down the middle, as if splitting in fear. I hovered above the ground now, staring at Zara. My voice dropped into a chilling whisper that filled her head alone. "You promised to love me, till death. And yet, death itself couldn't keep you from betrayal." She screamed, clutching her ears, shaking violently. Peter tried to pull her close, but even his hands trembled too much to hold her steady. I raised my blood-soaked hand and pointed at both of them. "Neither of you will escape me." Zara collapsed to the floor, her body trembling uncontrollably. She crawled backward until her back pressed against the wall, her wide eyes locked on me. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but I saw no regret, only terror. Peter, still clutching the pistol, tried to steady himself. "It's just a ghost. It can't hurt us," he shouted, though his voice betrayed his fear. I moved closer, my footsteps echoing unnaturally, each one heavier than the last. The lights flickered violently, plunging the room in and out of darkness. With each flash, my face appeared closer, my hollow eyes fixed on Zara. "No," she whimpered. "Please, Leo, forgive me." Her voice cracked, the weight of her betrayal crushing her spirit. But forgiveness was no longer mine to give. I leaned down, inches from her face, and whispered, "You chose him over me, and now you will share his fate." The window behind her shattered, shards of glass raining onto the floor. The wind howled into the room, carrying with it a stench of death. Zara screamed and buried her face in her arms. Peter pulled her up roughly, trying to drag her out of the room, but the door slammed shut again, sealing them inside with me. Peter pulled Zara toward the door, yanking the handle with all his strength. But no matter how hard he tried, it would not budge. The wood groaned under his fists as he slammed against it, shouting in desperation. "Let us out," he roared. I hovered silently, watching them struggle. Their fear was the sweetest justice. With every attempt they made to escape, the house twisted further under my control. The floorboards creaked as if alive. The ceiling fan spun wildly without power, and the air grew colder until their breath came out in white mist. Zara clung to Peter's arm, her voice breaking. "He won't let us go. He wants us to die here." Peter turned, rage masking his fear. He pointed the pistol at me again, screaming, "You're dead. You're nothing. You can't kill us." I tilted my head, a chilling smile curling on my face. "Can't I?" The bed rattled violently before lifting off the ground and crashing against the wall. Pictures fell from their frames, smashing into shards. The very foundation of the house trembled as my laughter filled every corner. Zara fell to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. Peter, for the first time, looked like a man who knew death was closing in. Peter dropped the pistol, his courage crumbling as the weapon clattered across the floor. Sweat poured down his face, his chest heaving with shallow breaths. Zara clung to him, shaking violently, her eyes darting between me and the locked door. "You don't have to do this, Leo," Peter stammered, his voice trembling. We didn't mean. My voice roared, rattling the walls. "You struck me. You stole her. You killed me." I raised my hands, and the temperature plummeted. Frost spread across the window panes, creeping like skeletal fingers. Zara's teeth chattered as she collapsed, clutching her chest. I advanced, my hollow eyes fixed on her. "You betrayed love, Zara. And you," I turned to Peter, my tone venomous. "You betrayed life itself." The air thickened, pressing against their lungs. Peter tried to shield Zara, but my shadow loomed over them both. With a sudden surge of rage, I lunged forward, my cold hands wrapping around their throats. They gasped, clawing at my grip, eyes bulging with terror. I squeezed tighter. Their screams choked into silence. Cracked out necks snapped in unison. Their lifeless bodies crumpled to the floor as I let go. Their bodies lay motionless on the cold floor, eyes wide open in eternal terror. For a moment, silence swallowed the room. The storm outside ceased, leaving only the sound of crackling glass and the faint hiss of the wind. I stood above them, their betrayal still burning in my chest, yet with their deaths, a strange calm washed over me. My laughter erupted loud, echoing, filling every corner of the house with a monstrous sound that no living soul could ignore. The walls shook violently. The ceiling split, and flames erupted from nowhere. Curtains, furniture, even the very floorboards, caught fire, devoured by an inferno that had no natural source. Zara and Peter's lifeless faces glowed in the flickering blaze, as if the fire itself judged them. The room became an infernal prison, burning brighter and brighter until everything blurred into smoke and ash. And then, as the fire roared its loudest, I vanished. My spirit dissolved into nothingness, leaving behind only silence and ruins. The house burned to the ground that night. Neighbors whispered for years about the cursed place where betrayal had been punished. For me, the vengeance was complete. Only then did I finally rest.